Hi, this is Alexcursus, a show where I take a look at some gunpla and see how authentic they are. This time, we are looking at the 12144 Witch from Mercury FD20 Zowort Heavy. FD20 Zowort Heavy, as the name suggests, is the more heavily armed and armored version of Pelus Zowort. It is adopted by the Space Assembly League's military units, as well as Pelus Executive Defense Details and some other quick response operators. Due to Zowort's emphasis on thrust and speed, I'll be rating these kits with Saga, Style, Action, Gimmick, and Absence. Style is how much does the mobile suit resembles its counterparts in anime, games, manga, or other media. And just like the Zowort Heavy is pretty accurate in terms of both proportions and details. And personally, I really like the olive drab. Not that the super pale green isn't good looking, but the olive drab definitely gave Zowort Heavy the operator look. Now, interestingly, due to Pelus or Zowort's designation as fast mobile suits, or what we call the assault type mobile suits, it should be in more Air Force type of color, like, gray and more bluish tin. But if you think of army attack crafts, then yeah, Zowort Heavy having olive drab really works out. And like we have mentioned when we talk about the Zowort, its designer Inada Wataru is famous for designing mechs in the Armored Core series. And Zowort Heavy is definitely the Armored Core at home before Bandai jumped into the Armored Core series with their 30mm mission line. But we will talk about that later. Taking a closer look, Zowort Heavy is largely the same as Zowort. The forehead is different. Instead of a blade antenna, it has a Vulcan module. I also painted the interior of the main optic like before, and the contrast is definitely greater with the olive drab around it. So yeah, I'm pretty happy for the effect. Shoulder armor is completely new. Um, Three-piece construction, so the middle section is its own piece with these front and back plates as separate, which on one hand is actually a more simple way to cast. Like, it is simpler to make this sprue, like, the three plates on one hand. On another, it would theoretically increase, the sprue size, but Bandai really did a great balance on it, which not quite for style, but yeah, this is definitely a plus for style. Having the free size of the shoulder armor being cast in three places as three pieces. The rest of the arm is as elegant or well designed as before. I noticed this cover not being as flush as Zowort's before for some reason, despite the darker colors. But personally, I like the extra detail the part separation gave to the elbow armor. The extra thigh or skirt armor is also new with magazine pouches. They works. We will take a look at them in Gimmick, but again, definitely reinforce the operator's Zowort idea. Round to the back, basically the same, and I would say the olive drab. Okay, I thought, like in my head, I thought the olive drab would hide the part separation or, the artifacts of clipping, etc. better. But maybe I imagine it to be better. Like it does look good, like especially with the ham panel liner to cover up those marks, it looks natural. But in my head, I thought they would look better, but I definitely spent less time cleaning up the excessive panel liner because the olive drab really works well with the excess, giving the dirty look. Anyways, like I have mentioned, Zowort Heavy is heavily armored and armed. Instead of the factor boosters, we now have missile pods and a beam cannon. The beam cannon is mostly a clamshell, with the muzzle being its own piece, and then the back end, and then another piece for the end cap. It looks good. It works. There should be some color separation for the sort of a hand guard or shoulder guard for the beam cannon, but I don't think it hurts for the look. Missile pods, these missile pod covers are color separated because they are separate in parts, and they are not actually on a hinge, they just got a single tab for tension, and there is no color separation for the missiles themselves, but they are sculpted, and just like Zowort Heavy have no sticker sheet, so I think this is fine. Red or gray missiles really are just done so that people can really see it more clearly. But with such a crisp sculpt, I don't think it's necessary. So yeah, for style, Zowort Heavy definitely succeed in giving the impression that it is an upgrade from Zowort, or a heavier version of Zowort. At the same time, it doesn't add too much drag into the design, so you can believe this thing is going fast. Not to mention the more armor core like look really give you the impression that yes, this thing is going fast despite all the weaponry on it. I like the olive drab. It definitely complements with the optic. Would it look better with gray? Probably, but this is fine. Really benefit from having a very good base model figured out, and Bandai can just lump on additional option parts on it to make it look cool. Limiting it to an A for style, because like I said, with Zowort, the optic, the main optic can definitely use a negative sculpt on the lens instead of the internal sculpt that, if I haven't painted, wouldn't look as good. And the missing colors, even if Bandai gave me color correction sticker, I wouldn't use them, but since they are missing, so I couldn't really give it points for it. So A for style, probably A plus if we consider this as the proto Armor Core release of Bandai. But yeah, let's leave it at that. Next is action. Action isn't just a number of articulations, but also how useful they are. For the Zowort Heavy, it's pretty much the same as Zowort's. Head on a ball joint with one to the torso as well, but because of how substantial Zowort Heavy's head is, you don't really get too many angles with it, but it definitely suffice for most poses. Ab crunch, just like before, um, not a lot, but there are enough segmentation to make you really feel like there is a lot of abdomen movement. Skirt, just like before, have a lot of tilt. Again, help with giving the illusion of, a back crunch or leaning forward. Arms, the shoulder armor definitely proved to be a bit more limiting, and you do have to play around a bit more to get around it, unlike basic Zowort where you can use all of the motion range from the joints, but it's plenty good enough for the most part. And the forearm is basically the same, nothing have been changed. The legs, again, the additional armor do get in the way at times for posing, but you just need to spend a bit more time to play around with it. The real limiting factor is still the stationary back skirts. That is kinda rare in the whole Witch from Mercury line, but Zowort is otherwise plenty excellent even within the line, so not a big deal. Knee, again, basically limited by the basic armor design. In fact, the lower leg is the same as basic Zowort, so yeah, ability to kick his own back remains. Foot, again, just as flexible or wide range of movement as base model Zowort. The beam cannon and the missile pods are on a simple struts pegged into the pegs for the vector boosters that allow you to swivel, and then they got another peg to themselves on another swivel. You got a peg hole on both sides of the beam cannon, and the missile pods are practically omnidirectional, so you can swap them around if you want to, or you can have a Zowort Heavy with two beam cannons or two missile pods if you want to. And sure, let's do it while we're at it. Yeah, the magazine pouch and the firearmor is definitely a problem when you are doing some less than operator action. But, you can still Kung Fu fight with Zowort Heavy. So, yeah, I will still give it an S for Zowort Heavy in action, despite some extra limitation stem from having extra armor. Their interference is really minimal, and Zowort just benefits from not having as much armor as most mobile suits would be. And Zowort Heavy is just having normal amounts of armor on a mobile suit. So, for a standard number of armor on a mobile suit, Zowort Heavy is definitely having excellent action. So as for action, is very fair, I think. Next is Gimmick. Gimmick is the onboard weapon and optional weapons on the mobile suit, as well as some other additional functionalities. We had a look at the missile ports, beam cannon, and the Falcon guns. The gimmick is they exist and they can adjust their angle, and you even get 2 axes for the backpack weapons, so that is plenty good gimmick. And we still have the beam saber being hosted on the forearm, just like the standard Zowort. And we now have red beam saber blades because these are serious military beam sabers. The main gimmick, I would say, for the Zowort Heavy, other than the backpack weapons, is the long beam rifle. It is actually just the Zowort beam rifle, this very cool PDW thing, with extended barrel and a grenade launcher underneath, like a operator's carbine, still having the very considerate grip opening mechanism. So, like, it seriously looks like a armor core, and very much operator coded. Not mistaken the barrel for an optic this time, and both the beam gun barrel and the grenade launcher barrel is rather deep of a troop, so pretty cool. And we talk about these being magazine pouches. And these magazine pouches actually have a gimmick. I keep one in the open position for demonstrating. Removable magazine, just like Zowort. And you can put a magazine into the pouch. Not all the way in, because this is supposed to be sort of a automatic magazine pouch that opens up and deliver the magazine, so that Zowort Heavy can pick it up here and then shove it in at the back of the long beam rifle. So, if I am Bandai and one of my mecha designers come up with this gimmick, I am probably going to give him more jobs. And instead of this opened up magazine pouch, you can replace it with a regular closed magazine pouch. And if you're wondering about these holes on the side of the shoulder, yes, they are 3mm ports. This magazine pouch happened to be 3mm. I can just attach it. It is a bit shallow, but you can definitely do that if you want to. And you can definitely find the builder or optional parts, or it is illegal built for tournaments if you put on 30mm parts, but you can definitely put those on if you want to. So Zowort Heavy, gimmick wise, I have to give it an S. Really, if you wanted a armor core gunpla, you can't really go wrong. And out of all the grunts in which for Mercury, Zowort Heavy is definitely the most customized or kit bash friendly. So as for gimmick. Last and probably absence for the Zowort Heavy is absence. As you can see, there's no extra or spare parts, and like I have mentioned, there is no sticker for the Zowort Heavy. In the show, Zowort Heavy got one big fight. I think there's only two of them, maybe three, like a small squadron. You can argue they don't get their support flight system, but that is being sold as a separate model, so that's fine. For Zowort Heavy itself, having the open magazine that you can put the magazine in different places, that is a big win. You can argue they should give you a spare magazine, but I don't think that is really a big deal. The long beam gun being just, well, two parts, the grenade launcher barrel and the extended gun barrel. But you can still remove it if you want to have a regular beam gun for your Zowort Heavy. This is excellent. Or you can just put that on without removing the whole rifle for your Zowort. That is excellent. Missile ports, I think that is plenty enough that it have two position for its cover. The beam cannon, in fact, it has more part counts than most beam rifle on most mobile suits. Like there really isn't anything that Bandai didn't deliver with the Zowort Heavy. Anything extra is just not really typical for HG. I think the absence in Zowort is absence, so it is an easy S. To recap, Zowort Heavy got an A in style because it doesn't have 100% accurate color separation or color correction stickers, but they don't look bad at all, and the olive drab and the extra armor pieces design definitely suits its name and is positioned as the serious operator type of Zowort. Action-wise, ECS, like most of which from Mercury, and even with the additional armor compared to Zowort, yes, it is slightly less athletic compared to the Zowort, but for something called heavy, it is plenty good enough or better than good enough. Gimmick wise, I am lost for words really. Extra weapons that is not just two-piece clamshell that is devoid of detail. Actually having a extension added to the base weapon, like some of the really detailed model guns, that is great. And yeah, it's not missing any of the gimmick from the original Zords. Oh yeah, magazine pouch gimmick, that is excellent too. Um, I wish we have one for the other side too, but one is, as a representation is very rare for HG. Like some HG got really good gimmick with it. Like some really old HG got some really, 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 really good gimmick for really, really detailed mechanisms. But very rarely do you have a lot of weapons and then detailed gimmick and then, very good action. Very, very rarely back in the day. Which from Mercury, for the most part, is really good in this department. But I think Zowort Heavy is a cut above for something that is not a Gundam. Or, the protagonist or main antagonist Gundam. So, yeah, easy as for gimmick. As for absence, yeah, nothing is missing. I would imagine the long beam rifle be its own, two-piece clamshell, but it's not. I would imagine the beam cannon be a two-piece clamshell and it actually have a barrel and an end cap. That is great. The missile pods, I am not sure, but whatever I imagine it would be in part separation doesn't look as good as it does now. Definitely does not imagine the shoulder armor is actually built on top of the original Zowort shoulder armor and in three pieces like that. Nor do I imagine it having a 3mm port on the side at all. Yeah, magazine pouch, like I said, completely surprised. So yeah, easy as for absence. So the verdict for the Witch from Mercury 1 to 144. Okay, beam cannon. So the verdict for the Witch from Mercury 1 to 144 FD20 Zowort Heavy is A for style, S for action, S for gimmick, and S for absence. Overall, if you are skeptical about the 13mm armor core line, I would say get the Zowort Heavy first. See how would you like it. I know the two series isn't exactly the same, especially with the armor core line. It definitely have a lot more details and scopes. But I think because a lot of people have problems with the C-clips and the KPS joints, the relatively cheap, well, it is plenty cheap, Zowort Heavy is a good starting point. I mean, it is only slightly more expensive than the standard Zowort, and what you're missing are the factor boosters and the play antenna. Like, are you really missing? Like, are you really saving money by not getting the backpack weapons and the beam gun extension? So yeah, easily recommend for anyone who just want to try out Gunpla or Mega model in general. And even if you don't like Gundam, this is, Zowort Heavy can easily be a generic mech or armor core mech. Like no strings attached at all. Thanks for watching. See you next time.